Hey everybody, we are wrapping up our series called Your New Playlist this week. And it's all about understanding the role faith can play in the power of mindset. This week, we are focusing on using wisdom to change the soundtrack of thoughts running through your mind on repeat. And honestly, who doesn't love a good playlist? I have about 1 million different playlists on my phone. And how do I decide which one to listen to? Well, it's usually based on how I'm feeling. Let me just give you a quick example here, okay? If I'm happy, I have a playlist for that. I listen to artists like Stevie Wonder and Outkast and this band Maroon 5. If I'm sad, I have a playlist for that. I'm bringing out all things Celine Dion, Billie Eilish, like the old Billie Eilish, you know. She was sad for a minute. She went through that sad stage. If I'm chill, I have a playlist for that, and I'm listening to some Jacob Collier or my all-time favorite Brandy. Now, if I'm getting hype, I have a playlist for that too, and the list goes on. You see what I mean? There's just something about a good playlist that connects with the way we feel. And that's why we've been talking so much about playlists over the last few weeks. Not just the ones on Spotify or Apple Music, but the ones made up of the negative thoughts that get stuck on repeat in our minds. So today, we're gonna talk about what we can do when the volume on our feelings gets turned up so loud that there's almost nothing else we can hear. You know what I mean? Chances are that you do, because it's normal to have really big feelings about all kinds of things. It's like riding a constant roller coaster of emotions. Your brain, your body, your entire human existence is suddenly on the fast track of growing up. And one day everything feels normal and calm, and then the next day you're suddenly overwhelmed by the amount of things and feelings that you have on a daily basis. It's why you have a hard time keeping your cool with your siblings. It's why you yelled at your parent when they wouldn't let you have a friend over. It's why you have a new crush every other week. It's why you're fighting with your teammates for the first time ever. You're feeling all of these things at once all the time, right? And the good news is it won't always be this way. Eventually, we will think about these things and feelings in a different way. But what about the other kinds of feelings? The bigger, the more difficult, the more overwhelming ones. The kind that seem to stick around no matter how hard you try to stop the playlist. So I'll give you a personal example. I was actually homeschooled when I was in high school. So sleepovers and hanging out with other friends was a huge deal for me, because literally my Monday through Friday was hanging out with my brother. And so I got invited to a sleepover with some girls for the first time, and I didn't really know them. I was definitely a little on the outside of their group, but they invited me and I was so excited to be there. But when I got there, I just felt like all of their conversation was about their school and their context with their friends, all of these inside jokes, things that I just had no clue about. I remember feeling so insecure, like I just don't fit in here. I just felt so self-conscious and overly aware of myself, like I am the oddball sticking out. I can't laugh at any of their jokes. And it just was this overwhelming feeling of not fitting in. Do you ever find yourself wondering things like, will I always feel this way? Why can't I just stop thinking about this? Will it ever get better? Am I the only one who feels like this all the time? And for me, it was that last question that really got me. And I don't know about you, but when I'm overwhelmed by feelings of like anxiety or worry or stress or fear or sadness, I think I'm the only one. None of my friends could possibly be feeling like this. The adults in my life don't seem to struggle like this. Nobody in my small group is talking about this. And that's how emotions can trick us. We assume that it's just us. Everybody else has it all figured out, right? No, wrong. The reality is everybody feels like this. Everybody struggles to navigate big feelings. Everybody has a playlist of overwhelming stuff they wish they could just turn off. I mean, if everybody walked around with signs telling the world what they're feeling, I bet that we'd see at least one that made us go, oh yeah, I feel the same way. And that's the thing about feelings. We all have them, and we all struggle to believe that they can change. Sometimes what we feel can seem like it's the forever truth, that we'll never be able to change the playlist on our feelings. So what do? Are we stuck with the overwhelming playlist of emotion on our minds? Or is there a better way forward for us? Remember, we all feel this way. And that's good news because it means that there are people who've been where we've been and who felt what we felt who we can learn from. Some of those are actually people that we can read about in the Bible. Yes, even thousands of years ago, the writers of Scripture were actually talking about the fact that feelings and emotions are a part of being just human. And this one guy named Solomon was known as the wisest man to ever live. His story is told in the Old Testament of the Bible, but he also wrote several of the other books that we find there, including one called Ecclesiastes. And in that book, he shared something that I think can help us navigate the playlist of overwhelming feelings in our heads. So take a look. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones, and a time to gather them, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search, and a time to give up, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to mend, a time to be silent, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time for war, and a time for peace. I mean, that pretty much covers it all, right? Solomon's words here are so powerful because they remind us of two very important truths that we need to remember when it comes to our feelings. The first, having feelings is a normal part of being human. The ups, the downs, the joys, the pains, the highs, the lows we experience. These are all part of being human. So when you find yourself experiencing any and all of the feelings that come your way, just know that's not just part of being a high schooler, but also being a person alive on this planet. Now, if that were all Solomon said here, it might not be that encouraging. But the second thing that I want you to see here is super encouraging and it's helpful. And that's the fact that there is a time for all of it. In other words, yes, your feelings and all of your feels is a part of life, but it won't be this way forever. There is a time to feel anger, but then there's a time for peace. There's a time for worry, but then there's a time for calm. There is a time for sadness, but then there's also a time for joy. And that feeling that you feel in a real overwhelming way right now, that's okay. But just know that as Solomon said, it won't always be this way. There's a time for all of it. So when that mental playlist gets loud, we can turn down the volume by remembering that what we feel won't be forever, because feelings aren't forever. Now, maybe you're thinking, hey, that's great and all, but what I feel right now is a really big deal. So while I know it won't last forever, what do I do with it right now? And that is an amazing question. First of all, you can talk to God about your feelings. Go to God in prayer with what you're feeling. Ask Him to help you turn the volume down on the emotions that are overwhelming to you. Pray that God would remind you that feelings aren't forever. And second, talk to somebody you trust about your feelings. One of the best things that you can do is open up to a trusted adult in your life, like a small group leader, a parent, a grandparent, one of your friends' parents, or a caregiver. They're part of your life because they love and care about you. A conversation with them can be a safe place for you to process what you're feeling and find healthy ways to handle it while you're in it. So I hope that you'll start today by sharing with them. And lastly, turn the volume up on a new playlist. When you get stuck on repeat with your feelings, try to change the playlist by focusing on what's true. Scripture is a great place to start. Now, in the book of Psalms, we find all kinds of verses and poems and songs that can help us remember what's true. Take a look at this one. I know the Lord is always with me. I will not be shaken, for He is right beside me. When you're wondering if you will ever be able to change the playlist on some of your feelings, just remember this truth. God is with you, always. No matter what overwhelming feeling you experience, God will walk with you through it. And that, my friends, is a great truth to have on your playlist. So as we close, I want to say this. It's important to remember that having feelings is a good thing. It makes you a living, breathing human with a heart, a mind, and a soul. But your feelings shouldn't be ignored, dismissed, or talked down to, because what you feel is real. But when those feelings get stuck on repeat at the loudest volume, it's important to know that you can turn that soundtrack down. You can change the soundtrack by reminding yourself that God is with you. Just remember that feelings aren't forever. Now, as you head out today, I want you to think about this question. What's one overwhelming feeling that you've been feeling lately?